Good evening, everyone, and welcome to This Week from Rockdale. And I am your host, Larry Cox. And it is great to be. I'm going to adjust my camera. The thing got knocked around here a little bit. You know how that goes sometimes, guys, with the nonsense going on. So there we go. But it is great to see each and every one of you here today. And I am just excited to be able to talk to you guys about some things that are going on tonight. But first, I'm going to say hi to some folks that have joined me in the chat tonight because I love people joining me in the chat. Mr. Alex McDonald, great to have you today, Alex. Charlotte Gellert, great to have you. Justin Kinney, great to have my friend Justin Kinney here. Jill Oden, great to have you, Jill Oden. CJ Lester and William Campbell, great to have you guys here. Anybody else, if you go ahead and join, say hello. I'll at some point mention you. It's great to have you. So I didn't know if you guys noticed. Want to just jump right into a story. Josh Allgood, good to have you. Over in Newton County. So Marcellus Baines and Stephanie Lindsay. Marcellus Baines is the current chair of Newton County. Just won his Democrat primary. I don't think he's opposed, so he goes straight through. And then Stephanie Lindsay just won a primary, which I don't think she would be opposed in the race for a commissioner in Newton County either. So, but apparently back a few years ago, Miss Lindsay, who was an attorney, was involved in brokering a land deal with the joint commission, joint authority over there with Morgan, Newton, there's a couple other counties, Jasper. And apparently the FBI investigated on some fraud charges. And apparently this past week, Chairman Baines and Commissioner-elect Lindsay were arrest warrants issued for their arrest for wire fraud and tax evasion and a couple other things. They have the JDA. So joint. Okay, so guys, land deals, right? I've talked about it many times. That land deals are the downfall. Corey Oden, nice to have you. Corliss Turner, nice to have you. Land deals are the downfall. Judy Bonds, nice to have you. Of many politicians on the local level. It unfortunately just tempts them to get these kickbacks on these land deals. And if you read the article regarding the Lindsay and Baines indictment, there was a $150,000 commission that was paid to the law firm that Lindsay was Lindsay's firm, and $100,000 of that is allegedly kicked back to an LLC that the Chairman Baines was involved in. So, guys, when you have a county, a city, or a board of education, any local municipality or whatever, and they are involved in excessive land deals, you have the right to beware. Rockdale County residents have the right to beware because all the land deals that the second smallest landmass county in the state of Georgia has been involved in the last 8 years. Rockdale County residents have the right to ask for a forensic audit. Rockdale County residents have the right to be concerned with the amount of land deals that have been made. Rockdale County citizens have the right to be concerned when a judicial administrative facility is being built somewhere that it should never be built because it does not make financial sense other than the acquisition of land and buildings. I am just putting it out there, guys. There needs to be a hard forensic audit in Rockdale County. I know that Janice Van Ness and Tawanya Smith are going to accomplish that when they go in office because it makes no sense. The second smallest landmass county in the state of Georgia being one of the biggest county purchasers of land and properties in the state of Georgia on the government level. Makes no sense whatsoever, ladies and gentlemen. You know the old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire. So let me ask you a question. All the folks in the chat, how many of you think that there's fire in Rockdale County? How many of you guys think that these land deals need to be investigated? How many of you think that it just doesn't add up? Everything doesn't add up. I just don't think it does. I don't think it adds up. I think that guys, it's a sad state of affairs. We really have to watch what's going on in this county. We really need to engage government. And let's be honest. You, the voters of Rockdale County, engaged government this last primary election. You did what is rarely done. You sent a message to government that business as usual will not be accepted in Rockdale County. You defeated three incumbents in Rockdale County, and I want to just say, if I hadn't mentioned it last week, I'm going to mention it this week, right? That we did a little bit of investigating and research as far as the Board of Education. I was asked when was the last time a Board of Education member had been defeated, and we got to go back at least 50 years, folks. It's been at least 50 years since we know of a board. I mean, and we don't know then. That's as far as we could go back. A Board of Education incumbent being defeated. So, it's a very rare thing to defeat a Board of Education. It's hard to defeat any incumbents. And the Rockdale County citizens sent three long-term incumbents back to private citizenship off of your taxpayers' rolls. And that's interesting, right? That needs to happen. It needs to happen, and it needs to happen more often. So I'm impressed and proud of the citizens of Rockdale County for what they were able to accomplish this primary season. Sending a message to elected officials: if you don't listen to us, then then bad things could happen. If you don't listen to us, bad things could happen. I was going to let you guys know something. I was reviewing, I'm doing a lot of research now, just researching state law regarding Board of Educations and board members and what we can't do and just what the law says. I've already done a lot of research, but since being elected, I want to do a whole lot more research and make sure that I'm up to the game when I go sit on that dais with my other colleagues. And I noticed one thing was very unusual. I noticed in 2021 there was a change made to the duties or the expected duties of Board of Education, the board, and it said that it clearly states that they shall provide oversight to make sure that the superintendent is doing his duties and doing his job and carrying out his duties. And I noticed they had to add something specifically in there. In 2021, there was language specifically stated that asking for financial records and documents is not micromanaging. Now, that had to specifically be put in the law. Any common person with common sense would know that if you're tasked to, first of all, one of the board's domains is to set the budget, to establish the budget. So to establish the budget, you also would need to know that they're spending the monies properly and according to policy and the budget. But the legislature actually had to put in there that asking for financial documents was not micromanaging the superintendent, that was part of the board's job as oversight of the superintendent. So you've had the Georgia School Board Association and some superintendents who have said that's micromanaging. That's micromanaging. You're involved. You're getting involved in the day-to-day. This is the kind of fight that school board members face on a daily basis, and I think it's why a lot of them just give up and just go along, because they just give up and go along because they don't want to actually have that argument and have that fight. And there are just a lot of things that I've discovered, when I'm doing my research, right? So when you do your research, you find that, school board members aren't allowed to have conversations with staff. They're not allowed to have these certain conversations with the administration, with the board staff. I mean, the central staff. They're not allowed to have one-on-one conversations regarding specific issues with the superintendent. There's only one place that you can have these conversations, and that's on the dais. That's on the stage where the superintendent and the board sit. But you've got a problem with that, ladies and gentlemen. The problem is that the board frowns upon having serious conversations about the district on the dais because they don't want those things aired in public. So if you're not allowed to have the conversations with the individual administrative staff, you're not allowed to have those conversations with the superintendent, and they don't want you to have the conversations in public on the dais where you're allowed to have. That's legally where you're allowed to have these conversations, and they frown upon you having the conversation where you're legally allowed. So what that means is they are trying to sequester the ability of the board of having meaningful conversations regarding policy, regarding budgeting, and regarding curriculum. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to let you know, Larry Cox will be that voice that everybody wanted him to be. We will have hard conversations on that dais about this educational system. Those conversations are going to happen, and they're coming. And ladies and gentlemen, my goodness, just the fact that, you know, that these things have been kept from you, that you are not allowed to know these things. It is shameful, but fear not. The course will be corrected. You have a voice, and it's just not my voice. And I'm not going to speak for other board members, but I have spoken to other board members. And there are board members who feel the way I feel. And they're ready. They are ready to do these things. And some have already echoed and started carrying that message on the board. And you've seen it the last few weeks. And there is a new day coming. There is a new dawn. The sun is shining over Rockdale County brightly, and that light will expose darkness. And you asked for transparency. You know, just this week, you had a board member read a statement, and they read a statement of two combined laws. It wasn't one, because I went back and researched it. It was snippets of two sections of code put together. And they were right. The code did say that the board should be responsible for representing the students. But the code also says that the superintendent shall have day-to-day operation, and that the board shall be responsible for oversight and making sure that he is doing his job and that he is actually following policy. That's what it says. And I'm going to just, you know, tell you guys, we have to represent the need of the students. Well, but let's talk about the students for a minute. Okay. So if I just think about the students and I just say, I'm going to finance this educational system and I'm going to do no matter what it takes, and that's all I'm going to do, right? Then what about the adults, the parents and the grandparents who actually take care of those kids on a day-to-day basis? They provide food, clothing, and a place to live. If we overtax those adults who are caring for those students, then we are harming those students. So as board members, we need to actually represent those students. But by making sure that parents and grandparents are able to afford to financially care for those students, we are doing our jobs and we are representing those students. We have to make sure that this is a healthy community. We have to make sure that this is a viable community. And we do have to represent the students of Rockdale County. And we do that by making sure that their parents and grandparents who are financially responsible for them are financially able to care for them, that they're able to provide food, clothing, and housing. Just remember something. When we tax someone who doesn't, when we tax a home, and let's just say it's a rental property, and that rental property is rented by a family of 5 or 6, there's 3 or 4 kids in there, and you got parents, they don't own that home, and they're renting. And I raise the millage rate, or I raise the property taxes, the landlord gets an increase in his tax bill. Do you think he just eats that? No. That landlord passes that portion on to the renter. So if we think that when we raise taxes and the majority of the folks that live in Rockdale County are renters, it's not impacting them, it's most likely impacting them the most. Because, first of all, they're in a financial situation, the majority of them, that they can't afford to get a loan to buy a house. So they're stuck renting, which is more expensive than owning. And then when we raise taxes, then that means, get this, when that means that those people who are already struggling financially are going to pay more in rent, and it's going to take more money away from what they could do for those kids that are students in our school system. Jill Olden, thank you. And Jill Olden's an educator. And she's one of the best educators I know that has came out of this Rockdale County school system, just so you guys know. But Jill Olden says this, and I actually highlight it. Doing what's best for the student should not mean bigger budgets. Doing what's best for the students should not mean bigger budgets. Guys, I'm just going to tell you one thing. There are ways to cut this budget. We need to do better for our students. We need to do better for our community. And we can do both. And how do we do that? We look at what are we spending that's not absolutely necessary? What can we cut and redirect? What can we cut and give breaks to taxpayers? What can we do? What can we do? What can we do? We can eliminate unnecessary vehicles. We don't need all these vehicles that this county, the BOE has, or we don't need all the vehicles that the BOC has either. But we do not need all of these vehicles that the Board of Education has. We definitely need to look at the central office. We actually need to look back at the staffing before COVID, and we need to determine what positions were added because of COVID funds that came into our county. That's what we need to do. We need to, what positions were funded by COVID dollars? And then we need to say, okay, the government gave us a clear mandate. Do not create positions with these funds because these funds will be cut. Whatever positions were created with COVID funding, they need to be eliminated because they were not intended to be created. That may be a hard pill to swallow, but sometimes when you don't follow direction and you get yourself into a pickle, that's what needs to happen. Sometimes the consequences can be hard, and those consequences might be hard, but they will be necessary consequences to correct the course of action that was taken. Any positions that were created with the infusion of COVID dollars needs to be eliminated. All these excessive vehicles need to be eliminated. We may even need to look at the possibility of consolidating schools. Now, I know that's something that causes an uproar. And they said, well, you may not get reelected if you consolidate schools. My concern is not getting reelected. My concern is writing the course of education in Rockdale County. If that means making some hard decisions, it means making some hard decisions. And that's what I intend to do. I intend to listen to the public because when listening to the public, I am representing the students of the school system because those adults are responsible for the day-to-day care of those students. They are responsible for feeding them, housing them, and clothing them. And if I am taxing individuals out of the ability to do that, then I am causing more harm than I am good. I am causing more harm. I want to go back here and read something from, okay. This is from Yoga with Joy. How do you gather their information? How do you know what is working and not working if you can't talk to staff? What's the point then having a board? How can you do their job? We've all heard me talk about my listening meetings. And I talked to you a little bit ago about my Abraham Lincoln thing that I love to quote is that he was asked, people suggested he was violating the Constitution. And President Lincoln said that Jefferson Davis and the Confederacy are the ones violating the Constitution, that they're violating the Constitution, breaking the Constitution to destroy the Union. But I'm willing to bend the Constitution to save it. Well, Larry Cox is willing to stretch the limits of the law to make sure that we get what we need in Rockdale County. I don't even really think it's stretching the limits of the law. I think that the legislature gives you broad interpretation of certain sections, and I intend to take that liberty and do broad interpretation. First of all, Larry Cox is allowed to have town halls. Larry Cox will have town halls with several other board members in attendance. We won't be doing the talking. We'll be doing the listening. And if people have listened clearly to what I have said, I intend to have listening town halls. I will have other folks to facilitate the town hall for me. They'll be asked the questions. I will be able to comment on certain things. Anything that is a current policy, I'm allowed to talk about it. But I will clearly say this is not a directive of the board. This is me, Larry Cox, telling you what the board has decided, because no single board member can represent the board in public. But as a board member, I can meet with the public and hear their concerns about education. As a board member, I can listen to staff. I can listen to teachers. I can listen to people. I just can't give them an opinion. I just can't tell them what I personally think the board should do. But I can listen to everything they tell me. I can do that. And I think that, and I'm going to do some further research because I don't really think that they can constitutionally take my total free speech away from me. It sounds a little bit like infringing on free speech. And I'm going to get with a couple other board members and talk about that also. But we can also set policy. We can establish policy on how the board is going to perform that oversight to assure the superintendent is doing his or her job and carrying out the duties that the board has established for them to do, because the board establishes the policy. The board establishes the curriculum. The board establishes the budget. So the board has to have a mechanism in place to be able to assure that these things are being done. We have to have a policy that allows us to perform oversight and still not violate the micromanaging portion. And that's what it is. You just need to have someone who is willing to think outside the box and put the community and the students actually first, and not the board, not the superintendent and his staff. The worst thing they ever did was change this legislation in 2010 and make it superintendent heavy. One of the other things that I intend to do is to work with your legislature and actually attempt to amend some of this legislation and take this heavy-handedness that the superintendents have away. This needs to be a fairer uh, 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 system we have. It is too heavily oriented toward the superintendent. The Georgia School Board Association needs to be made up of more former board members than superintendents. There needs to be some revamping and revitalization of how the administrative part of the school systems work. We talk about local control. The 2010 legislation, in my opinion, has taken local control away, and it's made it a dictatorship of superintendents. And school boards need to be creative, and they need to think outside of the box to be able to be involved in the process now. You can be involved in the process. You just need to do that. Alex, I agree. Board members should forfeit their health care if they don't show up for meetings. And I actually looked that up, and I found that in legislation also, where that was added a few years ago about local boards being able to foot the cost. And it actually says that in the legislation that the board would incur the cost for adding board members to the healthcare. So that was something that was added a few years also that allowed board members to take advantage of the healthcare provided by the school system. So Alex, you are right about that. But guys, I'm just telling you, we can make a difference in this county. You started it when you when you decided to elect people who have a different way of thinking. You started it when you said enough is enough, and we've got people who are going to listen to us and follow through with their promises. And that's what we're going to do, and it's what I'm going to do. But it's not only going to be me, trust me. There are people on this Board of Education who are ready and willing to step up and start leading. There are. I assure you that there are. And guys, it's going to happen. It is going to happen. Well, I've been on here about 30 minutes, and I have spouted enough nonsense. But what I'm going to do is say goodnight for the night, and I'm going to be back on here and you guys next week. But listen, share the show with your friends. We need to do the right thing, right? Share the show with your friends. We need people to know what's going on. We need to know what's happening. And, just to let you guys know, I think what I'm going to do is have my first town hall in September. I'm going to be gearing up and preparing for that. Got a location I'm going to have it at, and I'm going to stream that town hall. But when we do that, I want to pack that facility. I want to pack that room. So, guys, I'm going to count on you when I have that town hall that you pack that room, because you say you want a voice. Now I'm going to challenge you to come and let me hear that voice, because before I'm elected to office, I'll be allowed to be as interactive as I want to be. So I just want to say thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Join me next Sunday from this week from Rockdale, and we will have interesting conversation. And of course, I take office 1st of January, as do all people who are elected now or in the general then. So I take office in January. But until then, I will be having town halls. I will be able to be more interactive and a little more vocal, just like I am on the show right now. Now, when I take office, you won't get these kind of things from me. I will really tone it down to what I feel I can do and not get in trouble. So that's what it is. So, guys, thank you very much. Come and join me next week, and we are going to talk about Rockdale County, the things that are going on, and it's as always, it's glad to see your comments in the chat.